Fresh and Fit, notoriously known for their takes on modern women, modern relationships, and giving men game on being high value. And although they've recently been demonetized on YouTube, they are still pushing their message loud and proud. But in today's video, we'll be taking a look at a scientific challenge they are presented with by Tim Pool and the Culture War podcast that might shake your world on why increasing body counts may not be in your favor.
The advice that you're giving, you can be nuanced with it on a long form podcast like this, but the advice that you're giving, most men are going to internalize that and think, especially young men, that the goal is like, that's the tunnel vision goal, is to have sex with a lot of women. Like that's what we need to do. And so I don't know if you've ever thought about what happens from a brain chemistry standpoint when you have something as high, something with as extreme of a dopamine response as sex, when that becomes your primary driving factor of what you're trying to accomplish. And say you accomplish that repeatedly over years, and say over 5 years, your goal is to meet as many women and have sex with as many women as possible. But that's the end of the goal. Like, I want to meet women, I want to learn how to engage with women, I want to have sex with women.
That is literally, y'all, I'm telling you, like, and I'm not coming out here to bash and make people the enemy here, but I just want you to see this is literally the goal. So many people are coming into my comment section and coming into spaces like, yo, it's not true. The red pill is true. The red pill is truth. And it's like, bro, this is literally what you're prescribing, right? It's literally the reverse of what you're telling other people women are moving by. You're just doing it from a man's perspective. Let me just catch as many bodies as I can, sleep with as many women as I can. And what he's about to break down, I think, is about to be phenomenal in terms of what it does to the brain, what it does to the mind. And then I'm going to come back in the end and really show how this all ties to the message we're sharing here in terms of getting men to really deal with the emotional roots behind these things to get the healing that I think you're actually wanting. And this is a way in which you're trying to get to it.
What you're doing is you're training your brain from a you can't get past this. It's this, you could replace this with anything. You replace it with cocaine, you can replace it with any addictive behavior of what happens in the brain. It's going to imprint on your brain that behavior, that when you engage in that behavior and that pursuit, you're going to get this big, once you finally achieve it, this big dopamine spike, big. And then you're going to get a big dopamine crash below baseline. And over time, what you're doing is you're training your brain, and you really, at some point, it's more subconscious than anything else, that is the pursuit that you must engage in to get that feeling, whatever you want to call it, the feeling of accomplishment, of what you would think is happiness, which is not happiness. It's fleeting happiness. But
did you hear him? Did you hear him? He said it's not happiness, it's fleeting happiness. So he's going to finish explaining it, but I love where he's going so far, right? So anytime we're dealing with the brain, with the functionality of the brain, hitting dopamine spikes, and eventually you're going to crash down, that is real. I mean, think about, for those of you who might have been addicted to porn, I know I share that experience. You were doing this stuff and you were reaching a certain high, and eventually it got to a point where you needed something new. You needed something more, right? Because your mind, your brain, your body got adjusted to hitting that dopamine hit and that high. And so you're like, yo, I need more. So you got riskier. You got more dangerous. You started doing more dangerous things. Maybe it went from the actual sex. Maybe it went from the actual sex encountering into it. Maybe you started doing it in public places, all these other kind of stuff that like legitimately like get you in phenomenal legal trouble. But like we know what this looks like. And that's why you can replace this. It's not just towards the sex. It's not just towards the other things. It's towards the drugs and the alcohol and all the other stuff, because you're training your brain. And we've done a video on this channel. If you guys haven't checked it out, we kind of discussed a little bit of the subconscious mind. What does the subconscious mind do? And essentially, if you ever think of like a rubber band ball, right? If you stretch it out as far as you can, eventually it's going to snap back into that original place and positioning. And that's a representation of the subconscious mind. And it's a representation of the programming that all of us deal with. All of us have in some way, shape, or form through what we've been raised on, through principle, all these other kind of things, right? And it's a representation of that programming. And so when you try to do something that's different, that's outside of that programming, your natural response to uncomfortability, to stepping out of comfort zones, to doing something different is, I just need to go back. You're going to run back to what's normal. You're going to run back to the normal thinking, right? So if you are used to telling yourself or listening into people who have poured nothing but negative things into you, that you're ugly, terrible body image, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? When you start getting around places that are pouring in positive influences, your brain is kind of tripping. It's like, I'm just not used to this, right? And I know it sounds so out of pocket and weird, but this is literally what the brain does. And so then you're typically wanting to run back to places of comfortability. Oh, no, 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 this can't be true. It's too true. It's too good to be true. It's a little uncomfortable. So I want to go back to the poor body image because that's just what I'm used to. That's what I'm used to hearing. And so this is why it's important to constantly pour in the right things, because it's a process as you deprogram from other stuff, because you're working on the subconscious mind. It's things you do that you don't even recognize you're doing. And that's a reflection of the programming. You didn't have to think about it. It's just you started doing it. What he's getting at in this very part is like, yo, you're programming men and young men to say that this is what they have to do to get to this level of satisfaction that they're trying to get at. And what's crazy is it's fleeting. After a while, as you continue to program yourself, you keep coming back to that to hit this high. And you feel like there's nothing else that you can go to in order to get to this level of satisfaction. That, as he mentioned, is fleeting. It's going to die down. It's going to run away. It's here for a moment and gone for the next. And the pain on the back end of engaging in this context in such a way is far deeper, y'all. I'm telling y'all, man, it's just far deeper than maybe what we're willing to give credit to in front, because we're like, well, this is just what I want right now. And this is what's available to me right now. What's the consequence? What is the end result long term of me investing my time into this decision? I know I'm in hurt. I know I'm in pain. I know the emotions are going crazy. But is this really the answer? And I think when we stop and ask ourselves, what are we doing and why are we doing it? We're able to get better clarity behind the action we're about to step into and really make a good, educated, wise decision moving forward before we get to a place where we're looking back and wish we would have taken that decision a long time ago.
That becomes then the pattern that is imprinted on your brain. And to get out of that I'm talking about neural pathways that bond very strongly. And to get out of that, you have to physically rewire your brain. And so my concern with this advice is that by the time the men are ready to settle down, to have kids, to be the best, what I think, I'll die on this hill, being a dad and having a family, there's nothing in the world that will ever be as satisfying or give you the feeling of accomplishment and purpose in your life, period. I'll die on that hill every day. And by the time they're ready to do that, in order for them to get into that state and not still be in this cycle of needing to get that dopamine hit that they've been trained to get over years and years, you have to rewire your entire brain. And that takes time and it's hard. Trust me, it's hard.
This is literally what so the reprogramming process takes time. Think about having to go through a marriage where all of this stuff is starting to bubble up again. All of this stuff. I'm talking about even from the emotions that began the journey of the decision to start, removing ourselves from the pains we're feeling due to what we're encountering. And man, I want y'all to hear my heart on this, because I really feel this in this space. I know that for a lot of you, and that may come across this video, the statistics kind of you don't care for. I really want you to know there's a cost on both ends, yo. And if you're on the verge of like, yo, I am done getting my heart broke. I'm done playing with these girls. I'm done playing with these guys. I'm done doing this and doing that. I just want you to really consider what's at risk, y'all. What's at risk by diving into these kinds of advice that these guys are giving. Because as I've been saying, man, and I feel for these guys too, because I'm not trying to attack anybody. I feel it like you're hurt. But the last thing we want to do is identify our character and our identity with the wound that was created from somebody who didn't value us or didn't care for us or treated us like chopped liver and threw us to the side, was here one day, gone the next, and was out to the highest bidder, or just simply the relationship didn't work out. It didn't go as planned. And yes, it's not fun dealing with that hurt and dealing with that pain and dealing with that emotion, but I'm just speaking from a place of experience, just a tad, from what I've experienced from a heartbreak that I dealt with. And I call it a heartbreak. It was a disconnection in that space, but I was hurt. I was genuinely hurt through that. Those thoughts do flood in. But it's up to us to get to a place where we make a decision to not allow the wound that was created to then become a part of our identity. And then every response that we give towards other people, towards potential relationships, all those kinds of things, it's shortened. It hurts. We're giving traumatic responses, and we're placing fear into other people. We're projecting it into other people. Nope, they're going to do it to you too. Nope, they're going to do it to you too. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But in reality, there's some emotional pain and hurt that hasn't yet been dealt with, hasn't yet been confronted, hasn't yet been analyzed properly in order to get there, in order to get to a place where we can say, man, yeah, that hurt, and I'm healed, and I'm okay, and I'm restored in knowing that my value was never dependent in this person, but my value is in the one who created me, in God. And he's the one who determines my character and my value and how I'm going to move in this life, not somebody's rejection of me, not somebody just throwing me away and placing me in disposal. We can acknowledge that those things hurt, but we don't have to live with it. And grieving is not linear. There's a process with that. I just don't want you to go through experiences that we're reading and seeing so many people endure, where they're like, yeah, I didn't necessarily deal with the emotions and the trauma and all that kind of stuff prior to me getting into this marriage, that now I'm finding out, bro, I have to put in a whole lot of more work than I would have if I would have just slowed down, if I would have done the emotional work, if I would have been willing to admit that, yo, this hurt me, I never really recovered from it. And instead of me dealing with that prior to the marriage, I get in the marriage, and now the marriage is really tough. There's not really any much peace here. My family is suffering. Now, I'm not married. I don't have any kids, anything like that. But I'm around, come from a loving family home, familial home. I'm around men who are married for extensive periods of time, 30 plus years, some embarking still young at 11, 12 years. It's beautiful. Those are the numbers that we want to see, and we want to keep moving towards and moving in. But just being around them and learning from them, yo, you don't want to wait till you settle down and then you just think a light switch is going to flip off and now all of that's going to go away, because that is not how life works. We know this.
It's really hard to do. And so that results, in my opinion, that's infidelity in marriages, it's divorces, it's fatherless homes, which then creates a whole nother cycle.
Yes.
Over and over again of the same cycle of chasing pleasure over purpose.
Preach that thing. Man, that brother need a tithe. Chasing pleasure over purpose, chasing passions over purpose, chasing impulses over purpose. We are all human beings created in the image and likeness of God, and we should not ever devalue one another as like a piece of flesh, a piece of meat, and somebody who's just only good for in bed, all that. Like, no, man, we just missed the picture there.
If you're chasing purpose and along the way you're having sex and meeting women and becoming good with women, but your purpose is focused, and it almost feels like you're almost there, but there's just some parts of it that I don't fully agree with, but that's the secret. Like, so it has to be driven in purpose.
Yeah. So if I understood him correctly, he's like, if you're focused on your purpose, but you're journeying, and you're meeting women and your purpose is still focused. Like again, how we're telling it, and I'm not going to be too focused here. I'm just telling you, hey, we're big proponents on wait until marriage around here. Covenant, honoring that, living for that, doing things the way God designed it to be. That may not have been the message that he said in that space. I do want to reiterate for our time here, all that's lock and key. Yeah, no, there's none of that, right? Until we get to marry. And of course, this isn't to bash anybody who has. It's not over for you if you've done it. No, you have an opportunity to go celibate, right? If that's something you've already done, and honor that, right, till you get into the space of marriage. But we are huge proponents of that. And again, the reason being is because we want to honor God. We want to honor the individual that we're going to marry, right? We want to be honorable of that. And there's so much more about a human being than just what you can do with them in bed.
I want to break something up, but you make a very good point, and I understand that. But I could argue as well, if I say with one woman, right, multiple times, I wouldn't say during a period of like a relationship, isn't that the same thing? And as well, let's say
it's not the same thing.
Why?
Because it's you're pair bonding. You're pair bonding and you're building a relationship. Unless you're just using them for sex. and it's, yeah, sure, maybe it's the same thing. But if you're with a person and you have an intention of building a life with that person, and you're pair bonding and you're learning how to communicate effectively and you're doing all the things to build yourself up as to become the leader of a family and the leader of that unit, it's not the same thing.
So I'm with that person, but I don't know from experience if she's good for me or not. And as a result, I made that choice not knowing. So I ask you a question, right? When you go to buy a car, I'm not saying a woman in a car, I'm give you an example here. When you go to buy a car, right? What do you do first when you buy the car? You go to a salesman, talk to them about the car, test drive it, and you go buy it. I'm just saying for most men, sex is a goal, but not the end all be goal. It's a part of the equation. I'm just saying have that as a part of your repertoire. So when you meet the woman, all right, sex is good. She's good as a person, as an individual, good family, could be a mother. All right, full package. I can make it. I have a choice here that this is a good woman for me. That's what we're saying.
That's but see, cool, but that's a problem. Shouldn't even be a part of that equation, biblically speaking. So that's the problem I have with this encounter too. It's like the car, like test driving a car. We're talking about humans, dog. Like humans aren't cars. Humans aren't material. Humans have a soul. And I think we ought to be more focused on honoring that, because that is made in the image and likeness of God, a reflection of him in his creation. So we ought to honor that and not be so caught up in trying to add something that is only designed for marriage into the dating field and say, yo, that's got to be a part of the total package. We treat it like it's ice cream samples. So you don't like that ice cream sample, you're just going to go to the next. Like, why is somebody's game that important for you to make a decision to commit to them? Because I feel like if you have to use as a mannerism to solidify a commitment for somebody, I don't think you need them. Matter of fact, I'm willing to go as far as to say, I don't even think you genuinely want them. Like, I think we've undervalued so much in this culture, and we've gotten away from what it truly represents in a space of covenant. It's good. God created it for the confines of marriage, because that is where he's honored. And if we minimize that and we take it outside of the marital confines, we're hurting ourselves. Scripture tells us that the one sin that is actually damaging to ourselves is sexual immorality, right? So we've sinned against ourselves in such a great way in that. So the picture, man, that I think should be prescribed and shared is, yo, we need to save ourselves for a covenantal space where God is honored and where we know for a fact that we're here for one another and isn't even a part of the equation. And now when we're in marriage, we have an opportunity to actually practice at that and grow at that together. That's just a deeper relationship that's connected.
I'm not saying that that's the end goal be all.
And for you to be able to come to that, rationally sound and logically sound conclusion that this girl is the right one, you have had to have dealt with a bunch of women that might have not been the right one. And what I'm saying is that in today's day,
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I'm gonna be honest. Now, granted, I do hear him on like, yo, like maybe you had to go through a whole lot of women to determine which one was the right one. I'm not saying that if that's where you are, that you're completely wrong. I don't think that's something you have to do, though. Because you know who gives us a great principle standard from top to bottom on who to look for in a person that we may consider to do life with? God, biblical principles, standard, Bible. There are so many marriages and relationships that are still standing, still doing amazing, and have statistically done amazing, and they've been each other's first in everything. They were each other's first boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife. You didn't have to go through so many. You don't have to date them all to figure out which one is the one you need to spend time with and deal with. I think the greatest place that you can start with is being in your Bible and understanding God's standards and thoughts on these things, and being in a space of patience where you are being prepared for that individual. And instead of, using your season of preparedness and waiting to play around, which is setting yourself back, you're becoming the person you need to be for the one you actually desire to do life with. I would say that's most optimal and beneficial.
in age, most women are not worthy of a long-term relationship. So guys need to be able to vet women correctly. Otherwise, they're the ones that take all the risks. So I get what you're saying, where you're saying like, hey, this might be destructive, but it doesn't affect men the same way it affects women with pair bonding and having high partners. There's plenty of guys that can go ahead, have a bunch of women, and then go ahead and decide, you know what, I want to settle down now, because at the end of the day, men are the ones that pick
That's
who they
not,
commit
it's
to.
just not true. Like you're right about the pair bonding aspect, but it's not true from a brain chemistry standpoint. When you it's just science. And I wish like Andrew Huberman was here. He could explain it much better than I can. But like, you can't get away from the brain mechanisms of what I'm talking about when you are casual. That is not based in a relationship. You have the woman tonight, you have the woman tomorrow night, whatever. And I'm sure you guys do really well. Like, you're wealthy guys, you're good looking guys. Like, I'm sure you guys clean up well.
Pause.
But like, but that behavior, it is high, really extreme dopamine.
I understand that.
Okay? And
I understand promiscuity can affect both genders negatively. I understand that. So unfortunately, a woman that's average looking to maybe a little above average looking has the same marketplace value and pull as a guy that's damn near a celebrity. Why? Because of the advent of the internet, Instagram, etc. An average girl can hang out with extraordinary men. That plays a huge role in their psyche of what they think they deserve and the type of man that they think they're capable of attracting. But what they make the mistake of doing is they think just because I can attract this guy doesn't necessarily mean they can retain that guy. But that plays a huge role because girls think they deserve best. If you ask an average woman, what do you want? She's going to describe to you an exceptional man. And that's been heightened even more so thanks to feminism. Women earn their own money. They have their own status. They have their own cars. They have their own ability to provision for themselves. So since they're able to get all these things themselves, they no longer need a dutiful, responsible, leadership driven man because they're like, yo, I just want the hot guy now. I can provision for myself.
I'm a fan of doing things biblically, and everything that he just described, right? In terms of the type of women, they're going to the best available. I can do that myself. I don't need this, that, and the third. I'm just going to go to the best and the best available, all those kinds of things. I just think that that is a specific type of woman. And in order to find and attract the right woman, you will be the right man. Preferences are cool, but here's where the starting place ought to be for you as you walk into the dating market and as you look at yourself and say, I am prepared to have the capacity of somebody else into my life to be able to pursue a long-term relationship and marriage with my relationship with God. Like, that's where that begins. When I look at biblical texts, there are so many things that these cats prescribe, man, that I don't see. And when it comes to finding the right person for my life, I'm able to determine whether that individual is somebody I should go after or not based on where they align in the principles and standards and relationship with God. Like, that's where all that begins. And you just can't get away from all the neurologists, neurochemistry details that he wonderfully explains in this video. But I'm just saying, you cannot move with that type of mindset towards all women. All women do not have their DMs flooded. Can I be honest for a second? All women don't have their DMs flooded. All women are not looking for their DMs to be flooded. All women are not posting provocative pictures online. All women aren't even on social media. So we can't then suggest to guys that we need to adapt to the current circumstances, because not all women fit that agenda. And what I fear is happening is there are men who are attracted to what the world is painting out and pointing to, hey, this is attractive, this is cute, this is that. We're doing all of that. And so then when men pursue that, it's like, oh, well, I got my heart broke and I thought this was the move. I thought this was attractive. I thought this was, and so we're going after everything that the world is putting in front of us instead of being like, you know what, like what should I be looking for in a woman in truth? And I think when we look at that biblically, right? Yes, there's preferences. Yes, personality matters. Yes, looks matter. You want to be attracted to somebody 1000%. And at the center of it all, they need to be someone who is pursuing the heart of Jesus. When I look at where I'm supposed to find my value and security as a man in God, in Christ, salvation being enough, his love for me being enough, this isn't to say that I'm just all willy-nilly down to get crushed. No, crushing's hurt and those experiences hurt, but we don't identify with those wounds and then furthermore introduce ourselves by those wounds. But we recognize that Christ is the one who can heal if that wound takes place. Love is a risk. Love does require vulnerability. Love is something that can be very challenging, but if we really want to experience it in the way that we can at the height of it, our connection to Jesus is necessary. Salvation being enough is necessary. And then we're able to step into spaces and be that loving individual. And not needing somebody to do something for me to be able to feel okay enough to keep giving the love that I just seem like wanting to give, that I just think is right to give, because God sets the standard and temperature for my character in life, not what somebody does to me or doesn't do for me. And this is challenging, yo. Like, I'm not even trying to clown anybody who thinks this way. I do think it's challenging. But I mean, everybody's doing the easy thing. And we see how that isn't beneficial statistically in any kind of way. So cool, I'm finna hit this girl, I'm finna hit this girl, I'm finna hit that guy, I'm finna hit that guy, I'm finna get this, I'm finna get that. Bail if it's not right, bail if it's not good. Like, we are devaluing human beings by the day. We're devaluing what a covenant means. We're devaluing all of that. And I think it starts by us coming back to what God says on relationships. That makes all the difference. Because now I'm not looking for what the world paints as enticing. I'm actually leaning into what God has to say about the relationships in my life. And allowing myself to be in a process where I'm being prepared to be who I'm called to be for the wife that I'll have, the family that I'll raise, the home that I'll lead, the community that I'll serve. And I think the biggest point in all of this video is recognizing that you have an opportunity while you're on the verge of choosing between dealing with your emotions and just ignoring all of them and diving in everything temporarily. You have a choice. You're on the verge. But recognize that all the things that you're going to get into as a result of removing yourself from temporary feelings, like getting into the promiscuity space and giving into all those impulses there, you're not going to be able to just turn off the switch when you get into a space of marriage. That's just not how it works. And you're going to have to do a whole lot of work to rewire your brain from all of that activity that you did prior to. And it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be too late. There's restoration available. I'm just saying that there's a way that we could just prevent all of that from happening. And I think that starts with us being willing to acknowledge that we were hurt, crushed when the separation, breakup, heartbreak, whatever took place from this relationship, and be willing to say, you know what, God, even though I'm hurting and even though I'm in so much pain and even though this feels so unbearable, my stomach is in knots, I'm despondent, my heart is in my chest and beaten out of it, and I just don't even want to keep moving forward in love, trying love, doing all these things. I want to hear what you have to say on the matter. And I need your healing. And God promises that he's near the brokenhearted. We just have to be willing to lean into him and listen to that. And that's my message. That's my message for this relationship space. If you really want to get to a place of living happy, healthy, and whole relationships with others in the midst of heartbreak, I need to get to the one who can actually do something about it. And that's God. That's Christ. And leaning into his word in order to be restored and healed to a proper place. And that grieving process takes time. It's not something that's overnight. But it's necessary, and you'll be so grateful on the other end of so many lessons you learned going through that journey that will prepare you for where you're going, that will build you up into the man you need to be, the woman you're called to be. But it starts with us being willing to say, God, I want to hear what you have to say on the matter. And it's real. It's real. And this is why becoming the man and the person you need to be in Christ, in God, and allowing Jesus to be your foundation is important. Because this dating market is getting crazy. And in order to attract the right person, you need to be the right person. Your boy appreciates you so much for kicking it with me. Be sure to share this with a friend. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on the post notifications so you know the next time we're posting. We got more reactions on the way. If you want me to react to a specific video on relationships or anything of that sort, definitely leave a comment below so we can get some thoughts. And I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in with your boy. And until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.